What's going on, everybody? It's Dan here, back with another Moonshine Talkin. Today, we're going to try to do a watch along of one of my matches. I say try because this is kind of three times I've attempted to do this. The first time it worked, but I wasn't sure if it was going to work. The second time, which I just did, I don't know what I did. I'm still getting used to this whole StreamYard thing. It's just one of those things that I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm terrible about all this stuff. But anyhow, so hopefully I do it right this time. And yeah, as far as giving you like a history or give you a description of what uh, this is a match. It says Sean Christain and Sonic Youth versus the Mest Brothers. It's myself and my buddy Kevin, my old Malenko buddy. Uh, Kev actually didn't use the Sean Christain gimmick at this time. He was still going by Ares, the God of War. And the Mest Brothers were a team from the NWA New England territory or promotion. Their names were Troy and Mark, and they're just two big, huge dudes. This was part of a TV taping that we did Memorial Weekend on 1999, and it was the second of two matches we did that night, and it was the last time Kev worked for the NWA, and it was one of the last times I worked for the NWA. And then, yeah, so I'll walk and talk through this. It's a very short match, and yeah, here we go. Let's do it. Hopefully, we get it right this time. Oh yay! I forgot that was take two. Currently, you can't really tell, but that's me rocking a sweet Absu Son of Tipra shirt. I end up taking it off for some reason. So wearing the stupid Alice Dahmer gimmicks. If anyone's watched any of my matches, I did like a whole Marilyn Manson gimmick at one point early on in my career because I was broke and had no money and couldn't afford stuff. So I wore these stupid stockings and fishnet gloves and crap. At this point, I mostly wore them just to make people uncomfortable. But yeah, rocking a sweet Absu shirt, which I ended up taking off at one point, and underneath is a Deicide shirt, which I wore a lot. Then what else can I tell you? Well, the NWA itself, when we worked for it, it wasn't anything like it was back in the 50s through till it became WCW. It's just it wasn't the same thing. It was basically a loose alliance of independent promotions throughout the country who got to use the NWA name, but it was nothing like back in the day. Especially a lot of people who are familiar with the more like what I consider the golden age of wrestling in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. The NWA with Harley Race as the champ, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, the Road Warriors were there, the Koloffs, the Four Horsemen, just all the greats of that era. Magnum TA, friggin' War Games, the real War Games, not the one they do on TV nowadays. Just a wealth of talent. Not so much the Freebirds, but Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin. Geez, who else? Just so many greats from that era. Luthez, if you really want to go back even further. But it wasn't the same thing. The NWA did not have the clout or the political pull within the business like it did when it was like the thing that it was like the glue that bound the pro wrestling industry together, where it was basically, for lack of a better way of describing it, the NWA was like the table where all the mafia bosses all got together and they figured out and horse traded and dealt and tried to figure out who was going to be champion, who was going to represent the business at the time. I mean, before they branched off the WWF, before the McMahons went decided to do their own thing and then kind of, take the handshake agreements that everybody, the agreements and everything, time honored traditions and all that. Before they went and said, well, screw all this, and Vince decided to take everything global, the NWA was like the thing. But point being is that when I was in it, when Kev was in it, it wasn't the same. It was a name at that point. I mean, nowadays, Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, he owns the name to it and he's doing whatever it is that he's doing with it. But yeah, so we worked for the NWA version, their little territory there. One of the companies there, I think it was called Century Wrestling Alliance, which is run by a guy named Tony Rumble. He ended up getting involved with the NWA. They let him use the name. And yeah, that's that. And then the guys who we're about to work with, and I've said it already, but this is Troy up front. This is Mark in the back. That guy with the glasses and the suspenders, that's their manager, Bull Montana. Can't really tell you much about Bull. I don't really remember too much about him other than he was like a mainstay in the NWA New England area. Don't remember the ring announcer's name. Don't remember the referee's name. It's 25 years ago. Give me a little bit of slack. Cut me a little slack. Give me a little bit of a break. A lot of the guys who worked for the NWA at that time, they were all students of the late, great Killer Kowalski. And that was like the big school in the New England area. Fun story, when I was doing my research, getting ready to get into the business, Kowalski's was one of the places I was going to go, but I just decided the Massachusetts area was a little too expensive for my taste. And I just didn't, I chose Malenko's instead. I just felt like I probably was better suited there, with Dean being more cruiserweight centric guy. It just seemed like a better fit for me. And for the most part, it ended up being a better fit for me. So anyhow, away we go. Lock up. Probably wondering what being hit by a guy that size is like. He was a pro. I mean, he was very easy to work with. This is what we would consider a squash match, where basically you just go in there and one team is there and their role is to make the other team look great and then just throw yourself around the ring for them, which is basically what we did. These matches were always kind of easy, doing the big man, little man thing, because it was either you're just going to bump your ass off, or they were going to work with you in a way that would kind of showcase your speed and your technique and maybe your athletic ability. And then you'd eventually just have to get thrown around or slammed around by these guys. But they were always easy matches. I always loved them. That was a drop kick from me. I didn't do those very well as the years went on, but back then I could still throw a decent drop kick. You might be surprised. I was actually kind of athletic, but not so much anymore. Now I just lift weights. That's all I do. Just try to stay in shape and stay healthy. But Troy was probably the better of the two, only because he was a little bit more mobile in the ring, where Mark, as you can tell, he's good. He's got good technique, but he's kind of limited just based on his size. And also, he doesn't really have to do much. If I were to compare him to somebody, if anyone's familiar with the AWA, he'd be like he's kind of like in the vein of like a Crusher Blackwell or someone in that respect, where he'd just go in there and just use the size to his advantage, and that's pretty much what he did. I will talk for a second here. So they own the ring, and a lot of times in the business, especially on the indies, guys will get more work if they own their own ring, because companies always need a ring. You kind of need it to run a wrestling show. So if you're good and you also have a ring, sometimes even if you're not good, you can get more work if you own your own ring. It just makes things easier. I think they also train people. I think a few people that were on the shows would end up who would end up working with them in the squash matches that they would do, because that's a lot of times what they would do a lot. Were a lot of their students or people that were affiliated with their wrestling school. But I was going to say something else, but I lost it. It probably wasn't that important. I think I was going to talk about the Good Times Emporium, which is the name of the place we're in right now. It's in Sommerville, Massachusetts. I don't know if it's still there to this day. Sorry for the mouth noises and all that, but yeah, it was a giant arcade. It was kind of cool when you go outside of this. This was like a little convention hall area, and that's where they would hold the shows. But then you walk outside the doors off to my left, and there's a whole giant arcade, and you get all the tabletop games, do the friggin' like a lot of stuff you'd see at a fair, but lots of coin operated games, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, a lot of the Marvel Capcom, all the old school stuff, like all the old Atari stuff, like Pac-Man and Centipede and all those old school things. But yeah, just lots of cool stuff there. It was kind of a fun place to be. And it was kind of a neat diversion when you were in between doing these shows. Because a lot of times when we would go there, we would do these TV tapings, and you'd be there from like 11 in the morning till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, because we would do 3 TV tapings a day. In that one day, we would just blast them all out. And you're talking like 12 to 13 match shows. And so there was a lot of people there, a lot of talent, and it was just long. They were long days, very, very taxing mentally, physically. You know, doing 3 matches a day it can wear on you. But I think the idea being, when we first were breaking into the business, Kev and I, a lot of the people that were, for lack of a better way of describing it, our handlers or people that were helping us out, trying to help manage our careers, they felt like we needed as much time as was humanly possible. So that's what we did. We went up to the NWA, the New England area one, and they would send us to do these TV tapings and just get us experience and exposure and all that. I don't think I think we got paid once when we were up there, which kind of sucked, but it is what it is. When you start out, you kind of expect that you're gonna lose your ass doing a lot of these shows. It's a little better nowadays, but back then it was expected that you weren't gonna make much, if any, money, which was kind of a pain in the ass, because again, we were traveling from New York to Massachusetts to do these things. But anyhow, enough of the backstory. We'll get back to the match. Yeah, like I say, you can see Troy's a little bit more of the athletic guy, more of the technique guy, where Mark was more the raw power. This is a very funny spot coming up here. I don't know if you heard that, but there's a kid in the background. Oh, humanity. It's pretty good. That always gets me. So yeah, that was the match. Hopefully this stupid thing worked this time. Hopefully I did it correctly this time. Like I say, the first time I had a couple roboting microphone issues. The second time, for whatever reason, I don't know if the screen share thing didn't work properly, but we're trying to the third time and hopefully it works. But anyhow, so that's that. And if it works, we're going to do more of these in the future and hopefully bring people on to bounce stuff off of and tell stories and whatnot and just have fun with it. But yeah, so that's that. As always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. Everybody have a good one. I'll catch you on the next video, and I will see you next time. Later.